That works too. All right, Raheem. Derek Chisora against Deontay Wilder, fighting April 9th, right? MF Pro?
No, April 4th.
April 4th. April the 4th. There you go. Well, Derek Chisora against Deontay Wilder. Um, in a loser should go home. In a both fighters maybe should already be there fight between 42-year-old Derek Chisora and 40-year-old Deontay Wilder. Once upon a time, Del Boy is a tough night for anybody. Ask Alexander Usyk. But once upon a time, you could easily argue he would have been tailor-made for Deontay Wilder. He's a more stationary target. I like the cross arm. I like the constant switching. It reminds me a little bit of Burt Cooper back in the day. It reminds me a little bit of a vintage heavyweight bottom 10 contender back in the day at his size and his build. Again, with the old school cross arm, tough as fuck. Derek Chisora, respect to him, but would have at one point been right in front of Deontay Wilder, even though he tucks his chin and switches and all that. And Wilder at some point would have sniped him with a right hand and probably knocked him out, highlight reel fashion back in the day. Now, I don't know if Wilder, because Chisora cuts the distance, man, and he's crafty with how he does it. He wears a lot of shots on the top of the head and is a rough customer who will apply the pressure. I mean, Usyk felt like that was his most difficult night at the office as a heavyweight. I don't know if Wilder's going to be able to plant his feet and control the center of the ring these days against Chisora. So I don't know. This is going to be a tough fight for Deontay Wilder. What are your first thoughts of this fight?
I agree that there was a time when Derek Chisora would have been tailor-made for Deontay Wilder, and Deontay Wilder would be a huge favorite in the fight. That was before the second fight with Fury. Anytime before then, that's how this fight would be spoken of. Now, it's the opposite. Deontay Wilder is tailor-made for Derek Chisora. The Deontay Wilder we've seen of late. Derek Chisora is a pressure fighter. Derek Chisora now isn't going into the ring with the fear or the apprehension that every fighter pre-Fury 2 would have gone into the ring with. Derek Chisora is on a winning streak, full of confidence, feels like he knows Wilder's weaknesses. No one would have known or guessed that what you need to do is pressure him before Fury done it. And you can disarm that right hand. You can take advantage of his weaknesses. You can pressure him, and you can believe that you can break him with that pressure of late. Question is Deontay Wilder finally out of his own head? I am one of the people that, if he indeed did listen to some years back, are responsible for the outcome in the last couple of years because I was dead wrong about what he should be doing. I was absolutely off the mark and constantly off the mark about what he should be focusing on, which was boxing. Clearly, that was not the case because no matter what they say in the comments or how you want to criticize Malik Scott, he is actually an excellent teacher of boxing. But you need a studious pupil. You need really to be able to mold a guy much earlier than when he got Wilder. You need to be able to have a fashionable bit of clay. And what he was trying to do was break a guy down and build him back up, and nobody ain't got time for that in the heavyweight division, especially when you're already world champion. That was the problem there. And that just was a terrible choice that I thought was a great choice. So with that said, now he has to unlearn all that shit, go back to being reckless, being wilder than ever. See what I did there?
Yeah.
And throw caution to the wind. I don't think an angry fighter is a better fighter. Be relaxed, but be intentionally spiteful. Find that passion to win. Find everything that has been said about you, what you believe Tyson Fury did to you, what your ex-girlfriend has done to you, everything that has wronged you, you gotta bottle that up and let that explode on the night. Let all of that ferocity come out and be explosive, our favorite word. You have to throw all of that other nonsense out the window and return to believing in that right hand. believing that you will get to him eventually, believing that he only has to make one mistake because Derek Chisora will make several mistakes. And if it comes down to you only needing to be right once, like it used to be, then you can knock out Derek Chisora. He doesn't have a granite chin. Derek Chisora will go down if you hit him properly. If any of that I just said, though, isn't true, Derek will pressure him, break him down, weather him down, and put him away.
Speaking of the ex-girlfriend stuff, here's Raheem DMing me all these videos. I'm going, oh,
Oh, hey,
what are we
hey,
doing?
hey, yo.
You're gonna get me in
Listen.
trouble. You're gonna get, oh God,
Listen. She's going to get us all in trouble.
you're gonna get us all in trouble. What are you doing?
We can't have it. It's
For
total.
journalistic purposes, people, all right? We're trying to stay in the loop of information here, all right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Anyways,
So the truth is, listen, she's come out and said that she got hacked, whatever. Let's take her at her word. But when it was happening, wild. Okay? And everybody in boxing was like, what is going on here? I would like to believe that exactly what she said happened because it was inconceivable to me that what was happening was happening. So, God forbid
got hacked twice.
that happens to any of us.
Twice she got hacked.
More than twice.
More than twice.
For
All right.
a while. There was days.
Series
But
again.
it can happen. It can happen. What do we know? What do we know?
We know nothing. I know nothing. So, anyways, so Wilder, to your point about trying to reestablish his identity, and you're right, he can't teach an old dog new tricks, and that's why I think Malik had his best outing in fight number 3 with Deontay, where the performance was much improved from fight number 2. I mean, they went life and death almost literally at that night, and it was just like jab to the body to set up the right hand up top. Deontay was like, I can incorporate that. And then they got, I think, almost like 2 years in the gym, and he tried to incorporate all kinds of different things. And it was, data overdrive, and he wound up deleting files that he shouldn't have, right? I guess to make that up on the fly.
Well said.
But that Tyler Herndon fight, you saw him try to harken back to the Deontay that went 1 or 2 jabs at a time. And even this thing he does with his stance, well, I can't do it, but he has his right hand cocked, and you know what I mean? He has this look.
It all looks ridiculous, but
right.
Just go with what works, man. Derek is not a difficult fighter to figure out. He's not a hard guy to find. But if you do not have your offense set and ready, if you are porous in your defense or at all wanting for an engine, he will wear you down.
Mm-hmm.
It was Usyk who told Fury, I will not leave you alone. Derek will not leave Wilder alone. Derek is not going to give Wilder any room. Wilder's going to have to create his own distance. He's going to have to find some balance that really was never there, ever.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to have to land them hands. And until he lands the sniper shot, Derek ain't going to stop coming. What you're not going to do is back Derek Chisora off with a jab or anything. You're going to have to stop him. So until you stop him, it's up to Wilder to figure out how to survive in there and retain the power and the confidence in the process. So when that sight lines up on the sniper, the right hand can put him down.
Well, yeah, you're saying the balance that was never there, but to your point about believing in himself, there was a time where he would take those punches that would land on him from a Luis Ortiz or whoever, because he had that belief that, let me just get through these spots of turmoil, because at some point when I land my right hand, I'm going to knock him out. But instead, what's been happening to him is when he gets hit, he really hasn't been reacting well to those shots. And it's been an effect of, oh no, here we go again. You could almost see that happening to him in the Parker fight, the Zhang fight. The minute he gets cracked, it's like, I'm going to that dark place again. And yeah, he hasn't been reacting to punches as well. Del Boy is gonna smother his chin, get low, get it, and take him here. And he's a warrior through and through. He's found a way to press through those dark spots and be used to them. He has 13 losses. That's not something new to him. for Deontay, who was undefeated through 40 or so fights, when he starts getting hit now, that his body language doesn't get good, and he may just not take a punch. He can't take, maybe not be able to take a punch anymore. From the ways he's been knocked out brutally in a few fights, Zhang and Fury. And yeah, I mean, like you said, the balance has never really been there. Defensively, when something's coming back, he gets discombobulated. Chisora, even though he's this front foot guy, has a better defense than him, a better defensive system than Deontay Wilder does, who, like you said, does really lacks good balance, and his body will flail around sometimes defensively or when he gets hit. So, but if physically he's still able to take clubbing shots from Chisora, who's not a sharp puncher, not a super accurate guy, he's more of a clubbing puncher, especially these days, and a body puncher. If Wilder can just take it here and there, or as my guy Sean Porter says, here and there, and eventually line him up with that beam for the right hand. But one problem for him, that right hand wasn't very accurate against Tyler Herndon. Now, Herndon was more of a cutie. He was, a guy who was fighting very defensively to survive, and what isn't fighting on the front foot like Derek Chisora. So, maybe that right hand is more available there. But between it not being accurate, between his defensive mechanics, which were never sound, but really not being on point lately, and balance-wise, punch resistance-wise, and between Chisora coming with the pressure, I don't know. I don't know if Deontay wins this fight, but we'll see what happens. See what happens. I think he still showed enough, and he was trying to go back to what he does best, one jab at a time, and threaten with the right hand with his positioning throughout the fight. But the problem was, again, when he pulled the trigger, it wasn't that accurate. And mechanics-wise, I remember Tim Bradley telling me weeks ago, the problem, the challenge in throwing your right hand, your power hand, or if you're southpaw, your left hand, is you're always, even the best of the best, slightly vulnerable when you let that power hand go. That's why so many of your punches come from your lead hand before you decide to drop the right hand. And he's very vulnerable when he lets that shot go. He always has been. That's why he was so good at calculating and being very economical with when he would let it go. And he'll have to get back to that in this fight. We'll see.
He'll see.
Yeah,
the punch is coming. He'll see that other Wilder in front of him when Chisora hits him hard for the first time. It won't be Chisora standing in front of him. It'll be the Wilder that has been losing. And if the Wilder who is inside him is the winning Wilder, he will defeat the Wilder in front of him. And then Derek Chisora will get knocked out. But if that demon that doubts himself, that still hasn't figured out what's wrong with life, who is betrayed by people, who is temperamental and fragile emotionally, if the guy who hasn't resolved those issues still exists and stands in front of the Wilder of old, that guy will be who defeats Deontay Wilder. He is an underdog in this fight, and rightly so. But for me, he's an underdog because he's fighting two opponents, himself and Chisora. If he can get himself out of the way, he beats Chisora.
So what did you see from that Simon Jordan viral moment when they went back and forth? Did you see the guy who's going to succumb to the old Wilder, or did you see the guy who's going to conquer it?
I see the guy who is still having issues with dealing with the world in which he lives. I'm not sure that informs me very much at all about what happens in the ring. And I know people are trying to extrapolate a lot from it. Some people are saying, oh, the ferocity, I should say, in Wilder is back, and the fire and all of that. And some people are saying, oh, he's absolutely lost his marbles and this guy is completely unhinged and can't possibly fight. I think that is separate and away from what's happening in the ring. That's a black man born and raised in Alabama, reaching the higher heights than probably him and his ancestors could have ever imagined. He is out not only of his environment, but out of his country, unfamiliar with the smug, kind of condescending, needling way that British people speak to each other. But in that sense, in dynamic, he sees it in black and white. He sees it definitely as taking a personal affront to him, trying to strip away his masculinity by telling him what he is going to do when he just told Simon what he wasn't going to do. And I don't believe he told Simon Jordan ahead of the show that he wasn't going to talk about Fury, and he had talked about it in previous interviews in the day or so prior. But when he said, we're not talking about that at all, then reiterated, we're not talking about that at all, and Jordan said, oh, you are going to talk about it. And we are going to talk about it. And then went on to talk about it. And then went on to say, well, you've disappointed me. He doesn't, Jordan, understand what the subtext is for a man with that history and that worldview. Whether that worldview is right or wrong, whether you think that history should inform his worldview or not, that is who he is. You're talking to a guy who's been yelled at in his face, being my face, for being, in his estimation, Wilder at the time, thinking I'm some kind of Uncle Tom simply for asking him a question that we both knew he knew the answer to. But in the moment, that nerve was triggered. That thing that is inside him about what it was like to be a boy in Alabama, what it was like to be probably the blackest, darkest kid in his class, being tall and probably skinny at the time, and understanding the history and the generational trauma, which is real, that is inside him, that pain of all of that is still there. I don't know that that is necessarily relevant to what happens in the ring. But what happens when he leaves the ring and has to deal with the world, especially when he leaves the country and has to deal with a different culture of what I am 100% sure he regarded as disrespect, condescension, emasculation, and a challenge to his very autonomy as a grown man. It was all in the response. All of that is what you were watching. I don't know if that affects him on the night in the ring. But I do know that if that fire is burning, every log needs to be put in one pot. Everything he's mad about, everything he's hurt about, everything he needs to prove, and all the doubts should have to face all of his greatest desires. That is the fighter he has to beat before he can get to Chisora himself. That is not Simon Jordan. That is not Radio Raheem. That is not Malik Scott. That is none of us are the problem. He's the problem. But he's got the solution to that problem. He really does. And it's to put that doubtful Wilder down and be wilder than he's ever been. Believe in himself. Believe that he only needs to be right once. Believe that the guy who's standing right in front of him, whose punches he sees coming, who's just as war-worn as he is, cannot beat him because he's got the one equalizer that nobody else in boxing has. That right hand gets the job done. And Chisora, receiving that right hand from that Wilder, will be knocked out. But if he don't have it, he is going to break Wilder down and eat him alive. And Chisora will finish his career at number 50 with the name of one of, if not the best, single punch heavyweight knockout artists in history on his record.